What is your perspective on the intersection of leadership and ethics in decision making?
All right. So, the topic of leadership and ethics is one that's extremely important and one that I avoid for a couple of reasons. One, it's kind of boring on the surface, and also it's really, really difficult. Ethics and leadership, despite those things, it's also, I can't think of anything more important. I can't think of anything that shapes society more than people who, I know using the word leadership, but what I really mean is people in authority and the level of ethics they use, and the degree to which they actually apply them. I've spoken before about a concept of Chris Argyris, who talked about espoused theories versus theories in use. Well, ethics would be exactly that. Ethics would be espoused theories. I espouse that I'm about this. And then the theories in use would be the practiced ethics. And maybe they're consistent, and that's what we're looking for. And that's what we mean when we talk about ethical leadership, is there is a consistency between a set of principles I've put forth, and presumably I put them forth because they're agreeable, they're effective, and generally they portray what our organization is about. So we put forth those ethics verbally, but now what about our behaviors, and what is the degree to which those ethics guide our behaviors? And then what do we do when we see gaps in those ethics? Because everybody's going to be watching, and culture gets built this way. Culture really does get built. I would say positive cultures are the ones where the ethics they fit the criteria I described, and we live up to them. And the leaders, the people who occupy the highest positions of authority, they practice them in their behaviors. But then also we want to know, do they practice them privately in their thoughts and in their feelings? So I think it would be helpful for any person aspiring for higher levels of authority within a hierarchy that they really reflect on what are the ethics that they espouse, and that they not just articulate them, but then really describe the corresponding behaviors that would clearly demonstrate those ethics, and also a set of behaviors that would clearly violate those ethics, so that we could really see. I think people just focus on what is ethical behavior, but let's really look at the things that would violate ethics. And of course, we could start with the obvious ones, like, Ten Commandment type stuff, but then we could really get into more of the subtleties of the other thou shalts, thou shalt or thou shalt not. And I can't think of a more important personal exploration to develop one's own leadership, but to start with the set of ethics and then look at the degree. So I will share an example. I'm going to tell one on myself. I remember I went through like a similar thing, a values clarification exercise. I was very influenced by the example of Ben Franklin, who came up with his, I think, 13 virtues that he would live his life by. And then he would have a card of each virtue, one that he would practice each week. And it's kind of cool to think about, because in a deck of cards, for example, there's 13 cards in a suit. There's 4 sets of, there's 4 suits. And then once to the week of the year, the calendar in a deck of cards is 52 cards, one for each week. Yeah. And then 4 seasons, for each. Yeah. Okay. So, and each week he would practice one of these 13 virtues. Now, what did practice look like? I mean, I read that. I was like, oh, he practiced them, and I just skipped past that. But no, stop practicing the virtues. What does that look like? What would you have to do to actually take this concept? Maybe one of them was cleanliness or industry. So let's take industry.